certainly. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests. Finding your way on the Camino de Santiago. Yes, I went on the Camino. I didn't go 450 miles. We went about 213 miles. I didn't hike. I went on a bike. But other than that, I was on the Camino. Keep that in mind. Now, what is the Camino? If you will, oops. I'm trying to, let me see here. I'm advancing my, excuse me a minute, stop the timing. This work for. Tested this before and it did work. Now it's not working. Yeah, please. Would you do that? I'm sorry. We tested this before the meeting. At any rate, it's a next, please. Yes, finding your way on the Camino. Did not advancing at all. It is now there. Camino. So if you looked at this, this is Spain. This is the top of Spain. We took a northern route. There are actually over 30 different paths you can follow. You can go from Spain, you can go from Portugal, you can go from France. People come from Sweden, from Denmark. Along the way, we met people from Holland who were going about 18, 20 miles a day on a hike. There are a number of different ways. What we did is we took the northern route, just a little bit north of that red line there. And it was quite an experience. Next, please. They say the Camino Trail is well marked, and it's well marked for pilgrims, meaning people who hike. That's the marker you see. You see a little arrow and the scallop sign. The scallop sign is there because when people went, this has a pilgrimage that's been over 1,000 years. People have taken this pilgrimage. And what is it? Well, when the bones of Santiago, St. James, were found in a certain area of Spain, they developed a temple or a place to worship it, and people would make the pilgrimage for a number of reasons. And today, the trail is pretty well marked. Now you see the intrepid travelers on the right of your screen. Those are my riding companions. The trail for bikes is not quite as well marked, but you can go parallel and you can go on the trail. And it's quite interesting. Some of the sights and the sounds and things you see are very enlightening. Next, please. Why do people take the pilgrimage? Well, they do it for a number of reasons. They do it for a spiritual awakening. They do it for penance. Many times they were pilgrims, they were given a penance. They had to make that trip and they had to meditate and contemplate over the many miles that they went on the Camino. They do it for Thanksgiving. Some people would be as Thanksgiving for something, for recovering from an illness or recovery of somebody else. They would take this trail, and many would carry a rock with them. And at the end of the trail in Santiago, they would throw the rock on a pile, and the pile would grow and grow. And those were parts of the pilgrims. Many people do it for mental and physical challenge today. It is quite, they'll go 18, 20 miles a day or more or less. On our last day, when we were leaving the hotel at 4:30 in the morning to catch our plane, we saw two travelers from Australia that had done 2 segments that day in the pouring rain. They had gone over 38 miles, hiked one day. And boy, were they tired. So people do it for different reasons. Many people consider it a way to find themselves. When you're hiking on a trail, many people do it alone, singularly. What do? You look at the scenery, you look at the trees, you think, you ponder, and you find yourself. As a matter of fact, the first day we were on our bikes, we got lost within the city of Gijón. And we asked a fellow the way. He pointed away, and of course, when we came back around again, we saw him again. And for whatever reason, we said, well, that's what the Camino is about, finding your way. Well, we found our way one way or another. Next, please. So we flew into San Sebastian, which is a beautiful little city on the coast of the Atlantic. Now, if you look, this is the beach. Look at the top of that hill. That's a former lighthouse and artillery station, but it's now an amusement park. Next, please. And this is the funicular that takes you to the top of that hill. And when you get there, you can take a look around, and there's the tower. It dates back several hundred years. What is interesting about it, I would always recommend when you go on a trip, you climb the highest tower, you climb the top of the cathedral, you look around, see what is around in the vicinity, and take a look at your environment. Next, please. When you get to the top, this is what you see. You see the beautiful bay. You see the gorgeous harbor that leads out into the Atlantic for San Sebastian. San Sebastian, for many people, is just a nice tourist stop, and that's what it was for us. Next, please. On the trail, this is what some of the trail looks like. Now, we use e-bikes, so if you're going to use the trail, going to ride, that's a good way to do it because there are some significant climbs. One day, we climbed over 4,000 feet on our bikes, and even on an e-bike, that's quite a challenge. So you can see some of the country roads, very isolated, going up through the fog, going up through the hills, and it's quite a enjoyable experience, but it's also, you're close to nature. Next. You see, you go through farms and you go through these desolate areas. This on the left here, you see a little pond. This is a trail that the hikers follow, and you get to see that. You get to experience it and meditate. You're going through these little farms. Now, these are the last two cows in a herd of cows that greeted us one morning when we were riding. So you have that natural experience. No matter where you are, you're with the people. What's really interesting is that the Camino is a thing, and people know you're doing it. They're very welcoming. And so every time we would go by somebody, I would say, hola, bon camino. And that's what they say, bon camino. And people would wave back, bon camino. And it was a way to uplift your spirit as you ride through and feel the support of the people around you. Next. You go through these little towns and you see extraordinary churches and mini cathedrals. This was a little town square on the left, same on the right. And you see what elaborate churches that were developed along the way. This is one of the stops along the way. So it's quite a spiritual experience. If you want to go in, you want to meditate, you can do that all along the way. Next. You see historical places, where one of the places we stayed is called a parador. Now, paradors in Spain are supported by the government. They're historical buildings that have been converted to hotels, and usually very nice hotels. This was one not in Luarca, I forget, there's so many different towns, but what you see is the tower next to the parador that goes back to the Middle Ages, 1600s, actually, a little past the Middle Ages. But this is one of the rooms in that tower, and you can see it going all the way to the top in the original paintings. And when you take and you stay in one of these, you get to experience the historical events and historical places you can see. Next, please. Local culture and buildings. This is a little town called Luarca. It's a town by the seaside, and this was an elaborate estate with statues and enormous and plants and just a beautiful garden. And you get to see these kinds of things and learn about this family that owned this, supported the area. They started schools, they developed this, and it's a museum now that you could walk through if you're there during the right time of the year. Next. When you get there, everybody's so excited. As you can see, I made it, Santiago de Compostela. But on the right, there's two ladies. They rode from Portugal 3 days, and they rode quite a while. And they were going back the next day to Portugal. 3 long days on the road. And you can see how excited. That is the cathedral in Santiago, the square where you come in when you finish the Camino, or from wherever you have started. Next. Now you can get a certificate of completion. And you stop along the way, it gets stamped. So you get a certificate of completion. This was one, the travelers before, pilgrims used to get a scholarship. That was their certificate. So my daughter awarded me my certificate of completion, Camino 2023. Next. Bon Camino. When you go, if you go, you can go for a week, you can go for longer. Enjoy however you want to go. Ride, walk, hike. We've met one fellow, he said, yeah, I'd walk a day, then I'd take the train. Then I'd walk a day and take the train. Said I have a bad knee, but that's how he did it and he enjoyed it. You do it your way, do it for your reason. And all I can say is, Bon Camino. Mr. Toastmaster.